much.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for your commitment to today's hearing and for affirming that our global community has a moral obligation to combat hate, bigotry, and white supremacy. While I sit here today listening to the testimony by activists, advocates, and survivors, I'm sobered by the timing of it all. Just yesterday, we marked 3 years since the occupant of the White House imposed a racist, xenophobic ban on Muslims entering this country. We marked 75 years since the atrocity of the Holocaust robbed our world of 6 million Jews. As a Black woman and a woman of faith, I am saddened that as a nation we have grown so uncomfortable to hard truths and resistant to our own history, and because of this, we stand to repeat the mistakes of our past. Ms. Abish, thank you for sharing your painful and powerful testimony today. The mass internment of Uyghurs in China is a global disgrace. It mirrors the atrocities we see here in America, the world's leader in mass incarceration. A country which imprisons people simply because they worship differently should rightfully be condemned, but so too should a country that imprisons its own people for being Black, brown, or poor. The United States does not stand on unblemished international moral high ground, and yet we must speak out. By most estimates, between 1 million and 2 million Uyghurs have been ripped from their families, separated from their children, and forcibly held inside of so-called re-education camps, or as I believe them to be, concentration camps. Ms. Abbas, I think we all know that a re-education camp is a grossly inaccurate description of what is happening. You have pointed out that the backgrounds, professions, and livelihoods of the disappearing people proves that these are not vocational training camps, as the Chinese government has claimed. Can you explain that further?
There are more than 500 intellectuals, university presidents, professors, famous writers, successful business owners. They don't need vocational training. Basically, the Chinese government is using war on terror, Islamophobia, and the name of the re-education or vocational training, incarcerating 1 to 3 million people. According to Randall Shriver, the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Defense, back in May 2019, about 3 million people are incarcerated now in the concentration camps. China is using the trade threats, debt trap diplomacy, and the power of the Belt and Road Initiative, and the manipulation in United Nations as the second largest donor, basically becoming the power able to strong-arm the world. So our administration and the government and our lawmakers urge all of you to act bravely, take action to stop this modern Holocaust, modern slavery right now that conducted by the Chinese government, because these Uyghur people are charged with no crimes. The only crime of my sister and the millions of the Uyghurs being incarcerated is because their ethnicity as Uyghurs and their religion, because they practice Islam.
Yes, and of those 3 million, your sister and your aunt were both placed in camps, correct?
My aunt was released 4 months later, but they both got picked up same day, 6 days after I spoke on the panel like this one. But my sister is still there in the camp.
All right, thank you, Ms. Abbas.
Thank you.
Last year, the New York Times revealed that Chinese authorities are using a vast secret system of advanced facial analytics technology to track and to control the Uyghurs, a form of racial profiling used to monitor the movements of an entire community in China. Meanwhile, there are reports that the Uyghur families that have not yet been in prison are too often forced to house a non-Uyghur man affiliated with the government, who shares a bed with a Uyghur woman, a power structure opportune for abuse and assault. Ms. Abbas, for the Uyghurs in China who are not imprisoned, what has daily life been like?
Basically, being Uyghur and being Muslim became illegal for our people. So everybody is facing persecution, not only the ones in the camps. Everybody's lives are being monitored and being called over to the checkpoints and every corner. And the plus, right now, people are facing to host non-Muslim, atheist Chinese people to live in and to live with them in their houses. And the Uyghur girls are forced to marry Han Chinese because of the government gratifications, offering jobs, housing, cars, and the money. And they cannot refuse such a forced marriage, because if they do, then they will be labeled as Islamic extremists.
Thank you, Ms. Abbas.
Ms. Holland?